creating a TV show, getting to make a TV show is very much like a far-fetched dream is what it feels like, because how many people are trying to do it versus how many people get to do it. I think the last time I looked, like 3% of book authors are Latino, which is crazy, like 3%.
From Futuro Media and PRX, it's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Today, writer Shea Serrano and his journey from school classrooms to TV sets. Shea Serrano is a Mexican-American author born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. He's the co-writer of Miguel Wants to Fight, a movie that was released last year.
Miguel, have you ever gotten into a fight?
Yes.
With who?
It was me and that one dude. We were both aggressively hugging.
Does that count? Oh my God.
He's also the creator of the TV series Neon, streaming on Netflix.
We're moving to Miami. I'll be the biggest reggaeton star in the world.
And he's also the author of Primo, a semi-autobiographical comedy that got a stunning 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
How many uncles you got?
5. It feels like 50 most of the time now.
Let's go, guys. We don't have all day.
But if you think that writing a TV series was Shea's biggest dream, well, you're going to be absolutely surprised. Today, Shea is going to take us from his first job in construction to the unexpected encounters that, paired with his talent, allowed him to create and run his own TV shows. In his own words, here's Shea Serrano on how he carved a space for himself in an industry where Latino representation remains pretty scarce.
My name is Shea Serrano, and I write about things for a living. So far, I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers, created a couple of TV shows, co-wrote a movie, and started an independent publishing company that I now run out of San Antonio, Texas. So I worked for this construction company called Ryland Homes, and this was in Houston, Texas in the mid-2000s. It was the first job that I got out of college because my brother-in-law, he asked if I wanted to come work. And I thought, oh, cool, yeah, I want to learn how to build houses, and that seems like a fun thing to do. It was awful. No, I did not get a ton of muscles from doing that job. I just got bored and sunburnt. I wasn't out there for 12 hours a day like those guys are, putting the brick or painting houses or laying tile or whatever. I was doing customer service calls. So if something went wrong with a house, they would send me out there. I would go look. I would figure out what the issue was and then try to get it fixed.
Shea soon realized it wasn't the kind of job he wanted to get stuck with. So, after 2 years,
I had intentions or dreams of being a middle school teacher. It was a job I had wanted to do since I was a kid. And so while I was working at Ryland, I started taking night classes and weekend classes to get an alternative certification to be a teacher, and then eventually left to do that. It seemed like an important job to have because when you're growing up, you're in a teacher's classroom. That's like the ultimate level of authority. You get to go to work every single day and you have the chance to make an impact, like a direct impact on somebody's life. I applied at all of these Title I schools, which are schools that serve a poorer population, is how they describe it. And it was important to me to work at a school that was predominantly people of color. Growing up in San Antonio, that was all that I saw. I got a job in South Houston at a school that was 97% Hispanic. Started teaching there, started coaching all of the sports. It was great.
Both Shea and his wife, Laramie, were middle school teachers early in their marriage, and that's when they found out they were going to be having twins.
At 4 months into the pregnancy, she went into labor one day at work. They rush her off to the hospital. They do this emergency surgery, and then they tell her, you can't work anymore. You got to lay down for the next 4 months because if you get up, the babies could just come out. We were a family of 2 living on 2 teacher salaries. At that time, we were probably making maybe around $41,000 a year each. So $82,000 total for 2 people. We're doing okay. And then we went from that to now a family of 4, soon to be on 1 teacher's salary. And it was very apparent very quickly that the money that I was bringing in, about $1,100 every 2 weeks, was not enough to pay the money that needed to be going out. Like our rent was $1,600. And, you have student loans and you have electricity bill and groceries. And then all of a sudden 2 babies as well. Like if it's me, my wife Laramie, and the 2 twins, and everybody's got to eat at least 3 times a day at minimum, that's 12 meals I got to provide. And so I needed another job. I started applying at Target and Papado and Walmart and wherever I could, trying to get just like a part-time job. But nobody would hire me because I was working a full-time job. So I couldn't work the hours they needed me to work. I just started Googling work-from-home jobs. A writer was one of them. The thing said you need the internet and a computer. And I said, well, I got both of those things, so I'll try and do that. But I was not trying to be like a full-time writer. When you grow up where I grew up, they're not like, oh, you can go be a writer and you can like write about sports and music and people will pay you money. All I was trying to do when I first started, I needed to make like $400 or $500 a month. And then the sucky thing that ended up happening is we make it through those months of like, all right, Laramie's ready to go back to work. And then we go to like look and see how much is daycare going to cost. Because if Laramie's going to be at work and I'm going to be at work, who's going to take care of the twins? Full-time daycare for twins was like $2,000 a month. That was the cheapest we could find. It was such a weird position to be in because, you grow up and you watch. My mom worked at the corner store for 30 plus years, right? And my dad drove a bus for the city for 30 plus years. You watch them get up every morning at 4 a.m. to be out there to drive the bus or to be at the store when it opens. Every single day of your whole entire childhood life, you just watch them do it without even really thinking about it. And then you become an adult and you're in that position now. And then you realize, oh man, they were really busting their butts to make sure that we had our plates of food and to make sure that we had a place to lay down and a place where we felt safe and comfortable and loved. Like they were doing all of the hard parts without talking about doing the hard parts. And so you end up in that same position and you're like, all right, well, I guess it's my turn.
For about 7 years, Shea would keep his full-time job as a school teacher and coach while freelancing as a writer at any publication that would give him a chance.
The first real publication that I got to write for was this place called the Houston Press, which is an alt weekly in Houston. That was really where I learned how to be a writer. I had an editor there named Chris Gray. The editor-in-chief was this woman named Margaret Downing. And they both decided they were going to sit me down and teach me how to be a writer. Here's how you report a story. Here's how you interview somebody. Here's how you request public records for information. And they're teaching me all of this stuff. For whatever reason, I have no idea why they chose to do that. Then I started writing for LA Weekly or The Village Voice, MTV, ESPN, Rolling Stone. You're trying to work your way up through those ranks. And then eventually what ended up happening is in 2013, somewhere around there, one day I was on the computer. I went on Facebook. I had a message from this woman named Molly Lambert, who is a brilliant writer, a pop culture writer. And she was at the time working at this place called Grantland, which was the pop culture section of ESPN, created and run by Bill Simmons. And he was running this website that everybody wanted to write for. It was like writing utopia because they didn't care about web traffic and they didn't care about reporting something as fast as possible. All they wanted to do was make cool stuff and make good stuff. I started pitching them stuff. And I remember I wrote something for them. They published it. And then when they posted the link on Twitter, I got 100 messages about it, more than I had ever gotten about anything that I'd written. And eventually they were like, hey, we like the stuff that you're doing for us and you should come write for us full time. I was still teaching. I didn't want to leave teaching. And I told them that. I said, no, I really enjoy teaching. This is like a job I want to do for the rest of my life. Maybe there's a part-time sort of situation we can work out. And they were like, we see what you have done if you're working on this part-time. Let's find out what it looks like if you're working on it full-time. And I talked with Laramie about it. And I said, I think this is a thing I want to try. What do you think? She sort of walked me through the pros and cons of the situation. And eventually we decided on, all right, we'll try it for a year. All right, I'm going to leave teaching. I'm going to go try to be a writer full-time. And then like a jackass, I signed this contract in July of 2015. And then in October of 2015, 3 months later, ESPN shut Grantland down. And all of a sudden, I didn't have a job. It took me a year to talk myself into taking this job. And then I did it. And then immediately it was taken away. And welcome to journalism, baby.
But Shea had also been working on his first book, which was published that same month, October of 2015. The Rap Yearbook would become a New York Times bestseller, and it was turned into a documentary series for AMC.
I was very excited about all of that. But then also I lost my full-time writing job. And it was just weird limbo. It felt like so me and my buddies started a newsletter through MailChimp that eventually became the next book that we did together, Basketball and Other Things. That book came out in 2017. And that's when things really changed in a way that felt almost tangible. Because that book came out and it made it to #1 on the bestseller list, which is like a whole different thing. And it sold, I don't know, 33,000 copies the first week. It was like oh man, this is a real, I could just write books for the rest of my life if I want to do that. And then Bill Simmons is starting a new website. It seems like everybody's talking about The Ringer. And I was like, all right, all I got to do is hold out until they start that. And then maybe they'll let me go work over there, which I eventually ended up doing. And that ended up being like another very meaningful, I worked there for 6 years and I was like, man, this freaking rules. And I started doing more books. Creating a TV show, getting to make a TV show, it's very much like a far-fetched dream is what it feels like, because how many people are trying to do it versus how many people get to do it? The numbers are pretty abysmal. I think the last time I looked, like 3% of book authors are Latino, which is crazy, like 3%. And so that's in your head a little bit, but it's not easy for anybody to try to go do. So it wasn't like a thing I was fixated on. This is going to be harder for me because I'm Mexican. I didn't think about that part of it. Probably just because because I was naive. But I just thought, I want to try a thing. It probably won't work, but I'll try it. And I didn't have any experience in TV. I had never written on a show before or had any sort of like meaningful experience writing a script or anything like that. But again, same as with the books. Or same as with writing, I'd never written before, and then I'm going to try it. I've never written a book before, and then I'm going to try it. I said, all right, I think I'll try and create a TV show. That seems like a fun thing to do. And again, this all sort of ties back to the writing that I was doing before, because I ended up taking a bunch of meetings. One of the meetings that I took was with Mike Schur. And like an idiot, I'll never forget this. I walked into Mike's office. I didn't know who he was. I just looked and I saw him. And it was Mose. It's Mose from The Office. Oh my God, this is great. I walk in and I shake his hands. I'm like, oh man, big fan of your work on The Office. I think maybe he thought I was talking about the writing or what. I didn't even know he wrote on the show. And I sat down, and in his office, he had a framed picture of Parks and Rec and a framed picture of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and a framed poster of The Good Place and like all of this stuff. And in my office, I have a framed poster of the movie Bloodsport, and a framed poster of the movie Desperado, and a framed poster of the movie Blood In, Blood Out, like my favorite sort of movies. And I thought, oh, he's got these posters like I do, like he's a big fan of these shows. Didn't even realize that he had created or co-created them. We talked for an hour, and as I was leaving, just very casually, oh, you want to do that show? We should do that show. I'll help you with that. And I was like, yeah, sure. If you want to do it, I'm down. And then when I let the agents know who had set up all the meetings, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy Mike seemed cool, and he said he wanted to work on the thing together, and they lost their minds. They're like, you don't know who this guy is? He's the king of comedy showrunners. It turned out he's the biggest guy doing it. And we went and made a TV show together, which was great.
My dad left when I was little, so all my uncles are always around, and they're super protective of my mom and me.
What's that feel like?
Mostly it's like being inside a cloud of bees, except the bees are always cussing and punching at each other.
Primo is a coming-of-age comedy in the tone of Parks and Rec or The Office. I worked on it with Mike Schur. It's a show that you watch, and hopefully when you're done, you feel a little bit better about the world and your place in it. They might be arguing or fighting amongst each other, but they're doing it in a way that lets you know they all care about each other. It's interesting because the family in the show is made up of a mother and her 5 brothers. They don't speak Spanish because it's loosely based on my life growing up. And in my family, we don't speak Spanish. Like my dad is like directly from Mexico, right? And when he got here, back at that time, it was like a bad thing if you spoke Spanish. They put you in special classes in the school, and it prevented you from having certain opportunities. So him and my mom made a decision when I was born, when my sisters were born, we're not going to teach them Spanish. They're just only going to speak English. That way they could fit in, and we don't got to worry about them being shoehorned into the ESL class because they heard them say a sentence in Spanish or whatever. It just felt more natural. Like if I would have gone in there and changed things around and had it to where they were speaking Spanish, to me, it would have felt insincere. It would not have felt as real. I would have been less comfortable making the show, trying to pretend that we were one thing that we weren't. And that authenticity was more important to me than trying to pretend otherwise. I've been taking Spanish classes for a while, and eventually I'll get there. I speak a little bit. If you're going to say some stuff in Spanish, I might be able to understand it, but I'm not going to be able to say anything back to you. At this moment, I don't have like aspirations of trying to direct. I don't think I have. It's a little too intimidating of a process right now to be like in control of all of that and have to make all those decisions. I like to write a thing and then let a director direct the thing, right? But I would like to write another movie. I want to write a teacher movie or a heist movie or an action movie. Or what would be really cool is a thing that I've not done yet that I would like to do is same as what Mike did for me, where he was like, come on, I'll teach you how to do this. Or same as what Bill did at Grantland or The Ringer. Come over here, I'll teach you how to do this. Or Chris and Margaret at the Houston Press. Like I would like to be in that position to do that for another, like a writer who's coming up, right? Let me help you make a TV show. Let me show you some of the things that they taught to me. I think that would be a cool career accomplishment, to just look and be like, oh man, that show that everybody loves that's on TV, or that movie that everybody saw that's on in the theaters, like the person who wrote it, I got to help a little bit. I would say if I had to recap my career, it's been a bunch of work and a bunch of luck and a bunch of help all rolled together. When I look back, there are definite moments that I can point to and go, oh, that's when a thing changed right there. In every one of those situations, it was a person reaching down to pull me up. And not because it was going to make their career any better. All that was more work for each of those people. But they did it because they wanted to do it. And so I'm very thankful. And I just want to make sure that when it's my turn to do that, that I'm doing that any chance that I can. I gave a talk at a career day here in San Antonio, and it was for like 7th and 8th graders. And it was so nice to just be back in a school and standing at the front of the classroom and answering questions and making jokes. And I do that maybe like once or twice a year, and I feel that pool. I feel it inside. All I wanted to do was be a teacher. That's the only job I wanted to have. I didn't have aspirations of being a full-time writer. I wanted to teach at a school for 25, 30 years and be part of the community and feel important in that way. At some point, I would like to find myself back in a classroom and teaching middle school kids and coaching a middle school football team and a basketball team and a soccer team and a track team, just like I was doing before. That would be awesome.
That was writer Shea Serrano. Last month, news broke that Primo, the show Shea created, had been canceled after what he called a short but beautiful run. But Shea continues to create. In May, he released a new book under the title A Real Human Being, dissecting 9 essential Ryan Gosling movie roles. This episode was produced by Fernando Hernandez Becerra and edited by Andrea Lopez Cruzado. It was mixed by Stephanie LeBeau and Julia Caruso. The Latino USA team also includes Victoria Estrada, Reynaldo Leaños Jr., Glorimar Marquez, Marta Martinez, Mike Sargent, Noor Saudi, and Nancy Trujillo. Penile Ramirez is our co-executive producer. Our marketing manager is Luis Luna. Our theme music was composed by Zenia Rubinos. I'm your host and executive producer, Maria Hinojosa. Join us again on our next episode. In the meantime, look for us on all of your social media. And as always, I'll see you on Instagram. Hasta la próxima y no te vayas. Ciao.
Latino USA is made possible in part by the Ford Foundation, working with visionaries on the front lines of social change worldwide, and the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. Funding for Latino USA's coverage of A Culture of Health is made possible in part by a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.